Hello and welcome to FlyByWire Simulations in the Hangar, episode 3. I'm Kiwi and I will be your host for the start of this live Q&A session before we then go on to the Q&A later on. Today, joining us, we have from left to right, Dark of Nova, Harsh, Iceman, Imminus, Inaxair, myself, Pleasure and Holland, who will all be answering your questions today around the A380, which is the predominant aircraft we will be talking about in today's stream, with some A380X questions a bit later on. So, to start us off, before we go into the live Q&A section of the stream, we'll first be talking about some of the partners that we have created over the past week and a half to 2 weeks. So, if I go over here, our first partner of the day, we're delighted to say, is FS News, who are a fantastic provider of the latest and greatest on the flight sim community from all flight simulators and now Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. We'll be sharing some of our own news over on that website and some exclusives in the future to come. So we're delighted to have FS News as our partner. We'll be working closely with them over the coming weeks to share some of our information and some of our progress over there on both the 380 and the A320X. The second partner that we have is Your Controls. So we've been working with Your Controls over the past few weeks to develop the shared cockpit experience in the A320X mod. Some of you may know they also do some other aircraft and have done previously. And we're delighted to have the shared cockpit experience with the A320X mod, which you can go and download from their GitHub today and fly the aircraft with your friends. So thank you very much to Your Controls for your partnership, and we're hoping to work with you even closely in the future to really incorporate the shared cockpit experience. And the third and last but not least partner is with the mighty Flight Sim 2 community, who are a fantastic website community who share all the freeware developed mods from the Microsoft Flight Simulator, from both scenery to aircraft to lighting. They do everything, and it's absolutely amazing that we've been able to partner with them. So we'll be having our own area on the flightsim.to website where we'll be sharing our installer, and from there we'll be able to allow more people to access the mod in an easier fashion rather than over onto our GitHub. So thank you very much to our three partners who are absolutely fantastic. We're delighted to be able to share some of our developments over on these various websites to get this mod out to more people, because as you may know, watching this stream, the mod really has made a huge difference to the flying experience in the A320. So once again, thank you very much. I'm now going to pass you on over to Inaxair and the team, who are going to start over onto our Q&A session.
Thanks. So we'll start with the first question, which is, what made you decide to make an A380?
So that was actually a decision that was taken over many weeks, and so I'd say the main factors: it's an iconic aircraft. It's the only double-decker airliner. It's known by everyone. You can recognize an A380 anywhere. But not only that, also it's something that's never really been done in a study-level fashion for flight simulator or X-plane. So we were inspired by the challenge and the difficulties that others have encountered before us to make something that could be up to the level of what we're making our A320 project to be. And we know that the community has a lot of skepticism towards these projects because they've seen people have a lot of trouble reproducing those systems, and for a good reason, because they're very complex. So we learned from that. We looked what people have done before us. We've looked what went wrong, and we decided that, hey, we can do this. An A350 was also considered, but our partners at Sim4Flight, which one of our team members is part of, is making an amazing FlyByWire A350, which I'm sure a lot of you who wants an A350 will be able to enjoy at some point in the future.
Cool. So, well, you already answered another question, which was why not the A350, as it was the winner of the poll. So it's Sim4Flight and our partners. I'll go again and ask at Ashman, why have you decided to start on the A380 when the A32NX still has a lot of stuff to do? How are you managing to work on both at the same time?
Yeah, so I feel this is a question that a lot of people have had for us since we first announced it, because as you know, the A321X still has a long ways to go. But basically, with the A321X, a lot of the work we're doing is with like coding, some texture work, a lot of systems work, things like that. And with the A380 starting now, we're basically only focused on like modeling and animations and stuff like that. So basically, the two teams kind of working on it don't overlap at all, because we don't really have any modeling work happening on the A320 right now. So they don't get in the way of each other, and we're able to basically the A380 work doesn't affect progress on the A321X at all. So I can assure you guys of that.
Cool, thanks. So I've got some questions. When will it come out? When do we expect a flyable version so we can test or try it out?
Yeah, so this is really hard to give an estimate on, just because we're starting this from scratch and it's a really complex and difficult project to take on. I want to say it will at least take several months for the modeling to be and animations and texture work all to be mostly complete. And we expect that once like a lot of like the modeling work is done and we're able to put some very basic systems in, then we'll make it open source so people can start contributing to that and testing out like the basic flight model and so forth. So that's the current plan, but I'm going to say several months. Don't take my word on it. It could change. So that's my rough estimate on that.
Cool, thanks. So we've got another question about the release. Will it be updated over the time until it reaches an acceptable level of details, or will you release it in one package, fully completed?
Yeah. So my previous answer kind of overlaps with this question. Yeah, it's going to be updated over time, like the A380X. Like we strongly believe in the open source model, and it's proven to be extremely successful with the A380X. So once the modeling and that kind of work is done, which can't really be done over like a platform like GitHub, once that's done, then we'll put it up on a GitHub. People will be able to contribute and see the progress in real time. So it'll definitely be transparent in that sense. I think that kind of answers the next question as well.
Just keep in mind also when we have the model ready to be used in game, it doesn't mean that the model is final. So we will release a version that will not be final, and the programmers can work on all the features and stuff, and some small details will still change.
Cool, thanks. So I've got another question here. Is there any advantages due to having experience with the coding of the A32NX? Like, is it beneficial that you know Airbus type of logic?
Yeah, I would say so. Because the good thing about Airbus is a lot of their systems and kind of philosophy like share a lot of commonality. So, for example, like the PFD and the primary flight display, the navigation display, between the A320 and the A380 is very similar. A lot of their systems and kind of systems philosophy is pretty much the same. So, a lot of the things we have learned when working on the A320X carries over to the A380. So that does simplify things a bit for the development team.
Perfect. We know that the A320NX is a really complex aircraft as of now, and it's probably getting better. Will it be the same for the A380? Will the level of detail be as complex?
Yeah, so we do plan to aim for study level with the A380, but we don't plan on it being as complex as the A321X is slated to be. Like, for example, for the A321X, we're adding like a CFDS, like the maintenance mode in the McDo. We plan to add like the flight attendant panel. We plan to simulate the full like flight warning computer and so forth. In time, it'll take a while. With the A380, we're gonna try to get like to a good study level spot, but it won't be as detailed with those specific like systems that in depth. Because we do have documentation, but it's not enough at the moment. And there's just not as much resources out there for the A380 as the A320 because the A380 is like a significantly newer aircraft, and it's there's far fewer of them out there.
We have in the same document type of stuff. What are your plans to have the right measurements? Are you going to go to the real aircraft?
So I can take this one. We have many ideas actually to have the right measurements. One of them is we could use a simulator trip and take measurements in an actual level D sim, where we could find out the size of different elements of the cockpit to ensure that our 3D model is extremely accurate. Other than that, we might be able to obtain some measurements from our team of pilots and engineers. It's what we rely on very extensively for the A320. Yeah, basically that, going into a cockpit and relying on our engineers and pilots.
Yeah, so we already are in talks. I sent an email to the Airbus people, the Lufthansa people that own the simulator. So we basically will see where that goes. And with that being said, then we will have to ask them, of course, if we can take pictures, measurements, and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's something we definitely have planned to have a very accurate interior model. We're already working on the model on the interior. You will see that later. But we still want to have everything accurate and the way it should be.
Perfect. So we've got a future question. Will it have a brake to vacate or the BTV system?
Yep. Currently, we do plan on implementing that. That's something that's very like I want to say one of the most well-known features of the A380 and A350 family. At the moment, like the SDK kind of doesn't support that because we have a hard time accessing any of like the nav data from like SimConnect. So obviously, by the time we get to having to implement that, hopefully the SDK will be a little bit more fleshed out in that regards.
Cool. Also, as another feature, will the external cameras work so they can be seen from the eCam page?
Yeah, so ideally we also want to implement like the taxi cam and the camera at the top of the vertical stabilizer on the A380. But as with the previous question, there's a lack of SDK support for external camera views that can be integrated into like avionics. So only time will tell whether Asobo adds support for that to the SDK, but we're hoping they do.
Perfect. How do you have the expertise to program the aerodynamics and the whole electric system? Holland, please.
Hello. Yes. So aerodynamics and systems. So we have many people that are working currently on the A220 for the flight model and basically everything about the aircraft's performance. And we cross-reference with actual performance data and performance tables for the engines and the aerodynamics. So in the future, when we are at a state where we want to perfect the flight model, because of course the priority first is going to make the aircraft actually appear in game and look like an A380. We will work with those people that are specialized in those flight models to perfect something for the A380. We'll also talk with the A380 pilots we have to make sure that what we have implemented is realistic. And what we've been told so far is that it's surprisingly similar to the A320 that Airbus did a really great job of making the plane easy to handle. So hopefully that won't be too complicated to implement, but we have to keep in mind it's a very big plane with complex control surfaces. So definitely looking forward to that challenge myself.
Perfect. So a lot of people ask for this. Are there any previews or screen?
Yeah, I can answer that. Absolutely. We do have modeling and previews of the system screens. So for my part, I vector them using vectoring tools like Illustrator, and we have Holland who actually converts them to material that the sim can read via code. So in our upcoming presentation in the same stream, you'll be able to view some of them.
Perfect. So as we can see the real-world statistics, it's a long-range aircraft. It goes to 8,000 nautical miles. It has some big capacity of 850 seats, but typically among the airlines we see around 450 seats. So Dork, I believe you have worked on this fuselage, right?
Yes, that would be correct.
So if we look
this has
into
been work from I think it was River X. Please note it's still a work in progress. We're gonna work on this soon, and keep you posted over the A380 pedestal panel.
Yep, and then here we also have work on the flight control unit (FCU) and the display screens. Keep in mind this is still work in progress. Some of the angles may be off. We still have to add a lot of detail. So this is what we have so far. And then here's some of the components: the side stick, a knob, and one of the engine starter switches, for example. And then some of the avionics screens as well.
Yeah, here's a
just
part
models.
of some of the screens that I made, and those will be implemented in the sim. As always, they're still a work in progress.
Cool. So we're gonna transfer to the other questions. Sorry for this. I will A380 pilot or engineer, and I want to help you. Who do I refer to?
Yeah, so for those who didn't hear the question, it was like if you're an A380 pilot or engineer and they want to help out the project, basically just DM any of the admins or mods on the Discord server, and we'll go ahead and get you the role that will get you access to the channels we're discussing, and basically, yeah, discussing work on the aircraft.
Cool. We've got another. We got in front of the screen the development steps. Oh well. Okay. Never mind. So we have the.
Yeah, we could probably skip the
help needed,
presentation
so
for now and just jump into the
need
rest of
some
the
help from a lot
questions.
of people. Okay, cool. So will the AFB from the A32NX will be the same for the A380?
Yes, we plan. So basically, we currently have a shared EFB that's being worked on by me, Zigtag, and some other developers in the FlyByWire Discord. We're making great progress. We're talking already about SimBrief and Navigraph integration, and the goal of this is to make these shared. So in the A320 or the A380, you will have the same EFB, and potentially in the future, you'll be able to sync your settings between the two EFBs. So like, and yes, it will have dark mode because everyone wants that. So yes, it will be the same EFB with a ton of features.
Actually, no, we might share some like the backend code, but the EFB for the A380 is actually different. It's its own built-in EFB, so we'll have to reference Airbus.
Oh yes, the
document for
UI
that.
is different.
Just
UI
to clarify that, yeah.
Yeah, the Airbus UI is a custom UI made by Airbus and provided to airlines, but it will tie in with our FlyByWire online services.
Cool. So one of the stuff that we're really looking forward to is the sounds. So how will the sounds be? Will it be Boris with his encodable sounds or anything?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, we have one guy who basically does all of our custom sound work. His name is Boris. He's done an amazing job on the engine sounds, the custom Leap 1A sounds, and we plan on having him also work on the sounds for the A380. So yeah, you can expect some excellent sound work coming to this new aircraft.
Perfect. So as we saw with our partnership with Your Control, will the A380 have the shared cockpit features?
Yeah, obviously it is a more complex aircraft, but we do plan on supporting shared cockpit
Perfect.
with Your Controls at least. I believe Asobo does plan on adding their own shared cockpit functionality. We'll have to wait and see how that turns out. If they do add that, then of course we plan on supporting that as well.
It's difficult to create a plane from scratch. Why is PMDG and other pair developers delaying the project?
Yeah, so basically, we are lucky enough to be open source and have a large team working on this aircraft, so we do progress a lot faster than these smaller payware teams. Also, another thing to keep in mind is since they are payware, they do have to compile their code. They can't have it open source like we do, so they have to use APIs like GDI Plus instead of Coherent. So they have to write in a whole different API than we're doing, and that API is a lot less developed by Sobo than the Coherent JavaScript one. So that's the reason that they are experiencing some delays with their projects. But hopefully, Microsoft, Asobo, keep pushing out steady updates to the SDK, and we can see a lot of other study level aircraft come to the sim.
We've got another question about the screens. Will it have touch screens?
Yeah, I believe. I'm actually not too sure. I'm not completely positive because I believe they do have like that special mouse and cursor. But if the real plane has touchscreens in some senses, we're going to replicate everything on the plane as close to real life as possible.
Another thing that the A320NX needs some and is the autopilot be a custom one.
Yeah, so our current plan, and we have steady progress on this with both the A320X and the A380, is to implement a completely custom fly-by-wire autopilot auto-throttle system. The current custom fly-by-wire system is in its early stages for the A320X, but it's making some really solid progress. We have some very talented developers working on that. We expect that possibly in a couple months to come out in its first iteration. But we'll see. We also plan on implementing custom fly-by-wire and autopilot for the A380 as well. So you can rest assured it'll handle as close to the real thing as we can get it.
Where is the donation link?
Yeah, so a lot of people have asked, oh, can we donate to you guys? So we eventually did open up an open collective, which allows us to accept donations completely transparently. Donations are completely optional, not expected whatsoever. But if you want to, you can go ahead and visit the link in our description, opencollective.com/flybywire. All donations are just used for the development of the aircraft and server hosting costs. None of them go to us. So you're just helping to support the development of our A320X and A380.
Will it have an external load manager?
Yeah, so our plan for both the A320X and the A380 is to implement like a custom load manager for passenger boarding and cargo, and the same thing for fuel as well. But we just have to figure out how to override like the default one, so that'll take time, and it's kind of dependent on the progress in the SDK as well. So that's eventually the plan, though.
Perfect. So is there any plans for OANs on A320 and A380?
Yeah, so OANS. So those who aren't familiar with it, it's I don't actually know what it specifically stands for, but it's a system that allows you to view like taxi maps and airport maps on the navigation display. So the A380 definitely has that. We're going to implement that for the A380 for sure. And then it's actually an option on the A320neo as well. But even though very few airlines do offer it, So we plan on implementing the system, but that's dependent on the progress in the SDK because we currently can't read nav data. But once that's added, then we're going to go ahead and implement the OANS system.
What will be the cost of the A380? We know that you want to go to simulators; it will cost money. So
Oh
I don't know
yeah,
why
some
on the
people
details
have been
of-
confused about this. Yeah, all of our stuff is always going to be freeware and open source. We do it just for the love of working on it and for the community. So yeah, we're not going to charge for anything.
Perfect. So we have another feature that we have been asked. Will the fly-by-wire coffee cup be added as part of some small details?
Oh
Or-
yeah, yeah. I think I wasn't sure who modeled it, Pleasure or Dark of Nova, but I think a while back we did put out a preview of a fly-by-wire like custom coffee
Yeah.
cup. We do plan on adding that and a lot of other like kind of cool Easter eggs that don't get in the way of the realism to both planes.
Yeah, so I love adding small details to most of my stuff I work on. So we will try to have little Easter eggs. We won't tell you every Easter eggs because I think it's funny to find some on your own and you see like, oh, that's something new. That's nice. But the coffee cup is something that we've shown off already, so that's gonna be added in probably like the A320 especially, but the A380 probably as well because we've got the model anyway. So why not?
Perfect. I've got another good question. Will you use the some part of the A32NX code to the A380, or you will completely use it from start?
Yeah, so we are planning on carrying over the fly-by-wire and autopilot code, custom code for the A320X once we write it. Obviously, we do need to make tweaks for that because there are some subtle differences in the systems code for the A380. But fortunately enough, a lot of the code we're making, we're writing so that it could be repurposed for the A380 in the future, which saves a lot of development time.
What is the hardest system to code on the A380?
There's so many. Just based off what we've seen from our work on the A320X, it's got to be the fly-by-wire and autopilot system. There's a lot of knowledge that goes into making these. You have to have good knowledge of controls and systems, and of course, like the SimConnect SDK to get it to work. And it's probably the most evident because when people want to fly an A320, they expect it to handle like an Airbus. They expect the fly-by-wire system to implement things like flare mode properly, roll rates, pitch demands, things like that. So it's something that we have to work really hard to get perfect because it's one of the most noticeable things playing.
Good question about here. Will it be compatible with the new Trustmaster Civil Aviation Officer Pack and their hardware?
Yeah, so I have heard that there are some issues even with the A320 in that hardware. I don't know how much of it is resolvable on our side or how much of it has to be solved by Asobo or Microsoft. But to whatever extent we can, yeah, we do plan on supporting a lot of those well-known peripherals for Airbus products.
Will the HUD come to the aircraft?
Yeah, we actually do have a heads-up display already modeled for the A320. We'll probably model one for the A380 since that's in there as well. We do plan on adding in a heads-up display.
Is it? Do you have any support from any other development group, or you're all alone?
Yeah, we're just working on this ourselves. Obviously, like there are other like development groups in MSFS that have we kind of have shared info with. Like I know Working Title is doing some amazing work on their mods. We've kind of based some of our air work on the airway support and the A320X off their stuff. There's an awesome group of developers as well that we do communicate with and share info.
One thing that is missing is in the A32NX is the cabin. Will the A380 will be without cabin, or will it be with the cabin, interior cabin?
Oh yeah, we definitely plan on implementing a cabin. Everyone loves to see that in pretty much any plane, so that's the plan.
So there's something I want to add to that is with the cabin, especially with the A380, there's always the performance costs that comes with it, right? So you don't want to have a cabin visible in the game and no longer be able to fly the plane because of FPS issues. So there's a calculation we have to do and a way of implementing it. We have loads of options how to implement a cabin. You can add it to the third-person model or the first-person model. Third-person model means you don't lose the FPS in the first person, but still have the cabin, basically. You would have to switch to another camera, but it would be better for FPS. If we add it to the first person, you will have some FPS issues, probably. We'll have to see how much it actually costs. So if it actually costs not that much and it is fine, then we'll probably add it to the first person. And if it costs too much, then we'll add it to the third person.
We also have another good question: is which variant will you do of the A380? The engine variants? Will you do the Rolls-Royce or the engine aliens?
Yeah, I think our current plan is to start with the Rolls-Royce at first, because that's what everyone seems to like, at least from what we've seen. So yeah, Rolls-Royce.
So I have another good question. Some people here want to help, and they've got some documentation or they have some research or anything. I guess that will be the same with in real life pilots. We need to contact the MUD. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, if you have any expertise with the real plane at all, real A380, just go ahead and shoot me or any of the other moderators on our Discord a DM, and yeah, we'll get back to you and get you set up.
I'll come in here as well. If we go back to this slide over here, this is the help that we need for the A380 project. As always, we want to make sure that the 380 is as accurate and detailed as possible, as we are doing with the A320, and therefore that's why we're saying we need the pilots and engineers, but we also need people, QA testers, whether you've had experience with the A380 or not. We still need your eyes in seeing something that we're going to miss, because we might see the detail and the accuracy, but in terms of complex actions that someone who may have not flown the aircraft before might do, people without the experience will do them actions. So we need as many people as possible to come in and support the project. And if you need the Discord link, it's in our description, and it's also on screen for you now to be able to go over and join the Discord and be able to interact with us and get involved.
I've got another future request. Will they have any failures on the A380? Iceman?
So
Yeah,
I can take this. Oh, Ice, you can go. You can go.
No, Holland has this.
Okay. So for failures, that's what you're asking about, Inax?
Yes.
Okay. So failures is it's a hard thing to model because first it's so complex, the interaction between the systems. So like if a system fails, which one takes over? Is there redundancy? Which capabilities of the aircraft are still viable? And it's a thing that many pilots will not be able to answer us. That they can't, because pilots obviously don't shut an engine down in flight to tell us, hey, this happens. So we can't ask a pilot to test those things. It's really hard to model. But as much as we can, we will try to add abnormal procedures and make failures as realistic as we can. It only depends on the amount of info we get from engineers and pilots.
That's brilliant, thank you. And I know they're coming in with the...
Cool. So we'll hand over to Kiwi for the second part.
There we go. So I know they're they're looking at the 380 for failures, but also they're looking at the 320 to introduce it there to be able to just bring that next level of realism and interactivity with it. So we'll go on to some of the A320X questions now, because we've done quite a bit of the A380. There's not much more we can talk about at the moment, because obviously we haven't got that far down the line to be able to talk more in depth about what's actually been implemented so far. So we'll go over to A320X to see, add some of your questions about the development there and what's coming up next. So to kick us off for this bit, in terms of the autopilot, are there any plans to add holding support in the autopilot?
We do plan on adding support for holds. It's a feature that's been requested a lot, especially by people who used VATSIM or other online ATC networks, since you do use holds a lot in like high traffic areas. So we do plan on adding them. It's just going to take a while, since just working with the built-in routing system in general is a bit of a pain. But it's going to take time, but holds will eventually come out.
Fantastic. And I know we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but the EFB for the A320X specifically, is there any time frame at the moment? Do you know when that's going to be available, or are we still waiting for another development down the line?
Yeah, so we have a lot of work being done on the EFB itself in terms of like the design of it, the web development part of that, since it is written in HTML and JavaScript. But once that's completed, it's just up to our progress on the Blender importer exporter. Once that's done, then we can basically just throw the model into the sim, add the display, and we're good to go.
Yeah, so on the EFB part, the good thing about how we develop right now, because we don't have the exporter, we test it now, we include all the functions, we can already basically test it in game, but we can't add it to the A320 model. So we can test the menus and work on it, continue doing it, which then also means that we can implement it way faster.
Also, a big thanks to Pepperoni for picking up the importer-exporter development, and he's doing a very good job on that.
Speaking of the importer-exporter, do we know what's the progress there? Is it has progress massively increased, or is there still a good number of hurdles that we've got to go through?
It's really hard to say, because we're working with the proprietary GLTF format that Asobo's using. The import, I believe, is pretty much mostly done, unless we encounter any issues with it later down the line, which could be hard to predict. The exporter is mostly done. There are just some random issues I believe we're running into. But in time, I have faith in our development team, especially Pepperoni, who's picked up on Aiden's work. And I expect it to be done fairly soon, but I just don't want to impose any deadlines on them, because as usual, like everyone on his team is working for free. They're volunteering their time, and doing an amazing job.
Great, thank you. And talking about the FlyByWire autopilots VNAV implementation, do you know at all a time frame at which they'll be implemented into the A320X?
Yeah, so I was talking about the custom fly-by-wire system earlier. I believe one of our guys has been working on it pretty much mostly by himself. There are a couple of other, I believe, there's a, what is it? There's a guy named Rukas, who's a control systems engineer, who's been giving some really useful info. He's like 40 years of experience in the field. Andreas is our main guy working on fly-by-wire. He's been had some like solid progress for the past like couple months, and it's beginning to show results. At this point, we're very close to having the first iteration of our custom fly-by-wire done. I believe he just added yaw damping support. However, we're running into issues with it conflicting with the default autopilot. So it looks like what's going to happen is that we're going to need to code the custom autopilot from scratch as well before we can release both of them. So it's basically an all or nothing thing. So once we finish custom fly-by-wire, code custom autopilot on top of that from scratch, then we can release both of them to the public for use, because otherwise the plane won't be flyable without both of them done at the same time.
Okay, so you'd say the issue that you found with having the autopilot, meaning you have to develop it all from scratch, would you say that's a massive setback to what you were thinking in terms of the timeline of introducing the FlyByWire?
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a step back. It's going to push us back at least a couple months, because we were hoping to release fly-by-wire and just have the default autopilot work with that, so people can just have at least like good hand control of the plane. But it looks like we're going to need to work on autopilot at the same time too. So it'll be a couple months before the public will see anything in that regard. But the good news is once that is out, then autopilot and fly-by-wire will be completely working as it's supposed to in the real plane.
Okay, brilliant. So we've desynced the ND. Are there any plans on desyncing the MCDU?
Yeah, so I believe Tyler worked on this. He desynced the primary flight display and navigation display from the captain and first officer side to be consistent with the real plane, obviously. But the unintended side effect of that was that it does reduce frame rates in some users with lower end systems. And obviously for realism purposes, we do plan on keeping that desync in the plane. Instead, we're focusing our efforts on optimizing the displays themselves. So we're rewriting the PFD code and the navigation display code to be more efficient. So hopefully by the next couple stable updates, mainly 0.5.0, you should see a significant FPS boost from those optimizations. So once that's done, once we optimize that, then we can look into desyncing the McDo's, because we don't want to desync additional displays and cause more FPS drops in users, because it's not nice to run a plane at 20 frames per second, speaking from experience.
That's fine. And the MCDU, in terms of the pages, how far have you got to go before it's more or less accurate to the real aircraft?
Yeah, so the McDo goes hand in hand with obviously like autopilot and all that. In terms of real pages, talking about the FMGC itself, there's always tiny things to add to it. We're referencing, so our reference for the McDo is the Honeywell Pegasus McDo. So a lot of previous paper developers modeled after Thales, but we decided to go do something different here and try modeling the Honeywell McDo. And it's hard to say just because it's such an in-depth system. Yeah, I can't really give an estimate. Perhaps developers who've worked on it more extensively than me can probably say something about that, but it'll probably be definitely a few more months before we get it to an acceptable state, in my opinion.
Okay, and do you know at all, by any chance, the estimated time at which the stable version 1 of the A380X will be released, or is that too far in the distance to give an estimate at the moment?
Yeah, so the way we're working, at least when we're targeting 1.0, is we want 1.0 to be the release where the plane works as it's supposed to with no undefined behavior, like the real thing, in like pretty much all normal situations and some abnormal situations with some common failures. So in order for us to release 1.0 and be satisfied with that, we want to have custom fly-by-wire working. We want to have custom autopilot and autothrottle working, and we want to have pretty much all the systems in. So things like hydraulics, electric, and so forth. So it's not a matter of kind of what date we plan to release it on, but it's a matter of when these systems are done and we're satisfied with it, then we can go ahead and call it 1.0 and call it a day. We're still going to keep working on it from there and fine-tuning it. Our job is never complete, but that's the plan.
Brilliant. And obviously, because you're separating the ND, the PFD, the MCDU, you're running essentially double the code. So is there anything that you're doing at the moment to optimize the performance of this to reduce the impact on the frames FPS?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we're rewriting the PFD and navigation display. So we're basically, the way it's currently structured, the way it shipped with like the default A320, which we haven't touched much, is that it kind of renders the SVG, like the graphics, on the fly using JavaScript. So we're changing that to kind of render the graphics at initialization and only change what needs to be changed on every frame update. So that should present some frame rate increases. And we're also rewriting all the systems to kind of cache the SimVar calls. So SimVars are basically the variables that kind of define, that communicate with like the plane systems itself in the simulator code. So things like a SimVar, for example, would be like radio altitude or like selected speed, things like that. So basically, we're reducing the number of calls to SimVars and only calling them when it's needed. So that way, reducing those calls optimizes the performance a lot. So just a lot of different aspects of the plane that we're going into and removing unnecessary code and optimizing it. So it's in order to make significant increases in the frame rate.
Brilliant. And speaking of a bit of an OG question from more or less the start of the project, at the top of Descent, it's a bit of a burning question that's been going on for a few months now, and we've been sharing it each Q&A. We've shared more information about the progress. Do you have any further progress on the top of Descent at the moment?
Yeah, so the top of Descent, top of Climb, it's been one of our most requested features. It's like the Duke Nukem Forever, basically, of our mod. If you look at how the progress on that went. So yeah, at the moment, I believe Tyler is working on that. He might have just taken a break for a bit. We'll probably pick up on where he left off. But we do plan on releasing it hopefully within the next few months, but we'll see. Because I feel if I give a concrete estimate now, we're just going to end up going back on that, pulling the old Cyberpunk 2077. But all I can tell you is we're working on it, and it should be in soon. It's keywords here soon.
Brilliant. We'll keep sharing the soon emoji every time you ask that question. Have you spoken to FS2 crew at all about the integration of Flight Crew A320 into the mod?
Yeah, I believe early on we did talk with them a bit. The primary thing is we're still learning how Sim Connect works, and there's still a lot of missing features with transmitting like key events and things like that. I believe right now our priority is kind of getting all the WebAssembly and Sim Connect based systems that a few of our developers are working on into the Sim by 0.5. So that's our main priority, and once we have that in, we can probably devote their resources into integration with other third-party mods. But yeah, it's in the works. We just we have a backlog of things to get through first.
That's fine. And in terms of the backlog, is the VNAV and LDev in the backlog as well? Are they planned to be implemented anytime soon, or is there quite a bit of work yet to be done?
Yeah, I think there is work to be done with VNAV. Like things like, for example, like the managed modes, we can actually work on using the JavaScript code. We don't need to wait for FlyByWire because you're basically just commanding certain SimVars. So that's related to, I think, kind of like the development of the top of Climb, top of Descent stuff. So it's going to come soon. I'm trying to think here. It's going to come soon. Yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait for that and see. Luckily enough, Asobo has kind of made some improvements to the VNAV system in one of their past updates, so it's a little bit more usable now than it was at the Sims launch. So that should hold people off. But yeah, no real ETA on the development of that, unfortunately.
Speaking of Asobo, have we had any contact with Asobo at all over the past month?
Yeah, so actually in their last dev Q&A, I believe it was Jörg Newman who mentioned that he wanted to reach out to like freeware developer, like freeware aircraft developers such as us and the guys at Working Title. I got in contact with him over email. We're just in the process of scheduling a meeting to go over things like that. So it's very much in progress. We're making contact with them, and we hope we can work together.
Fantastic. And we'll go to one of the last questions for the A320X Q&A. In light of other freeware developers in the community using the A320X as a basis for the cockpit, what is your response to the other mods using the cockpit?
Yeah, so of course, obviously, we're a we're freeware, we're open source. We strongly believe in open source. So we're currently licensing our own code. Obviously not Sobo's or Microsoft code that's under their own. That's all rights reserved to them. But our own code is licensed under GPL v3, I believe. So that basically states that as long as you also license your work under GPL and you give credit to us, everything's good. So as long as they abide by those terms of the license we're using, they're good to go with using our stuff. But we do have to remind people that for any of those other mods, like the A321 or A330, we can't provide support for that because we didn't work on that. So be sure to go to their Discord for any questions you have regarding that. Because another thing to keep in mind is some of those mods can also possibly interfere with the avionics of the A321X. So just keep in mind, pretty much anytime you're downloading any community mod, they can always interfere with each other. Just something in general to keep in mind about flight sim modding at this current state because of how the ecosystem looks right now. But yeah, anyone's free to use our assets as long as they also make their work open source. And also in terms talking about other variants on that topic, eventually we do plan on developing kind of variants of the A320neo, including like the A321neo, for example, and possibly later down the line, the classic Airbus models like the regular A320, A319, A321, with the IAE and CFM56 engines. So something to look forward to further down the line.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. So that concludes the Q&A section of the stream this evening or today, this afternoon, morning, wherever you are. I'm now going to pass you over to Imedes, who's going to speak a little bit about our QA process for both the A321X and what will be for the A380 in the very short future.
Yeah, hello everyone. Since our team has gotten really big, we always are on the lookout for more QA testers, as it was already mentioned in the presentation before. So if you feel like you want to help the team out, welcome is always, the help is always welcome from anybody that wants to help out the project. So join our Discord, join GitHub. Those pieces of software and sites are really awesome, and they enable us to push this project further. So feel free to welcome us. Also, I have to thank our current QA team because there's a lot of work. There's a lot of devs, which means there's a lot of things getting added to the code all the time, and it's testing and then it's thorough testing because we always hear about if things aren't perfect. So if you feel things aren't perfect, that's why then you're a person that we need. We need somebody that spots the difference, the things that aren't as they should be. So feel free to reach out to us and join our QA team if you can.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Imedes. So yeah, we're always welcoming new QA testers all the time and many more people who aren't in the specific QA team, but just the general community, you guys watching this stream today, giving us the feedback. It's so vital for you to give us the information we need to then make the mod even better than it already is. So
yeah, that's a great point, Kiwi. I also want to thank the community because a lot of you guys know we use the stable releases and we use the development version. If you don't feel like you want to join the QA team, just install the development version and let us know what's wrong with it on the Discord.
Exactly, brilliant. Thank you very much. So that comes to the end of our in the Hangar episode 3, a special one with the A380 progress update and many more questions for you answered. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll show the teaser video of the A321X shortly, and then we'll end the stream there. So once again, thank you very much for joining us. Connect with us into our Discord and our social medias, and you can also see our various links in the bottom description if you're on YouTube, and if you're on Twitch, you can see on our About page on the channel. So once again, thank you very much and have a good day, evening or morning, wherever you are.
like to contribute to the project or stay up to date with the current development, come join our Discord server.